Was Jesus a pacifist? Hello, Internet. I'm David, and this is the Pursuit Blog, and that's a question that I've kind of struggled with over the past few years. I have grown from being somebody who is very pro-war to somebody who is really questioning that. So I figured I would ask a pacifist. So I brought in my friend Justin Maringer, who is the editor and contributor to the new book, A Faith Not Worth Fighting For. So, Justin, was Jesus a pacifist?
In my mind, the question is undoubtedly yes. We see this, of course, throughout Jesus' teachings. You could take the Sermon on the Mount just as one example, and you see things like enemy love, and you see turning the other cheek, and you see all these sorts of ideas and notions. But then also in Jesus' life, we see that he, rather than fighting against his enemies for a greater cause and all these sorts of things, he instead gives up his life. And that's exactly what Jesus has called us to. He's called us to take up our crosses, which is the way that he overcame the world. And so when we follow Jesus, we have to take up our cross. That's exactly what he said. He said, you can't be my disciple if you don't take up your cross. And so I think that we see in both Jesus' teachings and in his example something that I don't think could be argued, at least from the New Testament, as anything but a nonviolent or a pacifist stance.
So how do you, as Christian pacifists, deal with the question of, Jesus says he who lives by the sword dies by the sword, but in the Old Testament you have God's people going to war frequently. How do you answer that?
Actually, it's interesting that you ask if he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. That's what you see in a lot of the Old Testament, right? You have these people, Israelites, and when they're faithful to God, they go to war and they win the wars. But what's interesting about that is that happens in reverse. That when they're not faithful to God, they end up dying by the sword. And I think what we see that's really interesting is what one writer has called, instead of calling them holy wars, he calls them Yahweh wars. And the notion being, as Scripture says, that we don't trust in horses or chariots. We don't trust in a powerful army. It wasn't Israel's powerful army that sort of made them victorious when they were. It was things like a guy holding up his staff, over the war. And when he held it up, they won the battle. And when he put it down, they lost the battle. Or you have a prophet going out and praying and seeing thundering chariots in the heavens and striking people blind. You have all these sort of miraculous things where God is intervening for God's own purpose. So ultimately, we can look at all the different issues in the Old Testament, but ultimately what it comes down to is that most definitively we see the character and the nature of God in the person of Jesus Christ. And I don't know if we can reconcile the two perfectly, but I can say that I believe that Jesus' sacrifice, his blood, was the last blood that ever needed to be given. And so if we are Christians, we are followers of Christ, then we do as Christ did and as Christ said, even when we don't fully understand or can't fully reconcile the things that we see in the Old Testament text.
For more, make sure you check out Justin's book, Faith Not Worth Fighting For. I'll put a link down below. And Justin is going to be answering some of your questions on YouTube. So if you have a question, make sure you leave it in a comment down below or even a video response. And you'll be able to talk to him. And if you disagree with anything that is being said, blame it on him.
I guess I won't be fighting back.
I hope you have a great day. God bless.